chances are you're living in a country that has about the same weather that I have right here in Germany. In January and February, everything seems so grim photo-wise. The photo opportunities mostly fall into blue and golden hour, or maybe if you're lucky you get some snowfall. But especially if you're working, you're going to school, or are occupied anywhere else, it's likely that you miss a whole lot of these photo opportunities. So in my experience as someone that likes landscape and travel photography, this pretty much only leaves me with the second one, with traveling, to be able to do any photography, because honestly in these grim and barren conditions it's not really fun to do landscape photography. So it's either traveling or no photography at all for me. But I wanted to find a solution to that, or maybe at least try something different. So I was really happy when the company Brightin Star contacted me and offered me to test any lens they have in their portfolio, so massive thanks to them. But of course this video isn't sponsored and they will see this video at the same time you do as well. So anyway, I looked through their lens portfolio and I found one lens that might be very interesting, especially for this time of year, and it's their Macro 2x f2.8 60mm lens. Can't wait to say that. And I told them I would like to try this and tell you guys a little bit about it, so make a review about it, and that's exactly what I did. So as I said, this lens is not just a 1x macro lens, it's a 2x macro lens, meaning the reproduction ratio is 1:2 instead of the normal 1:1. I think the easiest way to explain it is if we go back to the 1:1 macro ratio, which is basically if you have an object that's exactly the size of your sensor and you take a picture of it at the closest minimum focus distance, it will completely fill the picture from left to right, but just that, not more than that. And well, then a 1:2 reproduction ratio on a macro lens basically just doubles that, so you can get in even closer. I have tested this lens for a couple of days now and I have some thoughts on it. As you know, you will not get any MTF charts or other technical analysis about this lens. I'm just going to tell you about my personal opinion using this lens. And just like with pretty much any other product as well, I have some positive and some negative thoughts about it. Firstly, this lens offers incredible value for your money. It costs only $145. Obviously Brightin Star sent me this lens, so I didn't have to pay anything for it, but I always felt like for macro photography the biggest resistance of me entering that field was buying a macro lens. I really like the idea of focusing on the smaller things in nature, especially in times like these, January, February, March, where everything seems so grim and barren, but there are subjects all over the ground that you just don't really pay that much attention to if you don't have a macro lens. But as I said about the price, that was always the biggest resistance for me to get into macro photography, because if you want to have a first party lens from Fujifilm itself, you'll pay at least 400 to 500 euros, and that's for a used lens, and obviously I'm not willing to spend that kind of money just to try something that I might not even like. This lens feels like a tank, so the build quality feels quite premium, but of course that means it's heavy as well and might not be a lens that you want to take every time you go out to take pictures. Now I have three specific thoughts on the build quality of this lens. Firstly, the focus ring feels amazing. It's really easy to turn, but not too easy that you will miss your focus. It has just the right amount of resistance. Secondly, the aperture ring, it feels quite hard and heavy to turn. Maybe that's something that will loosen up over time. Of course, it's personal preference, but for me it's just a bit too heavy to turn. Also, the aperture ring doesn't have any clicks between the f-stops. Now, to me, the most irritating thing about this lens, because generally it feels very premium, it's pretty much all made out of metal, of course very heavy as well. But if you have the lens attached to your camera, it moves just the tiniest amount, and maybe that's just me, but that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because every time I turn the aperture ring I feel it, though you don't feel it when you're using the focus ring. Now this might just be my copy of this lens, I don't know, maybe other copies don't have that, and I also have to add that I'm quite obsessive about these small things, so it might not even bother you. Alright, this is me a couple of days later while I'm editing this video. I have just realized that I made a mistake, because this lens does move around within the lens mount, that's true, but apparently that's normal for all lenses I have tested so far, because I was just filming or trying to film that it's moving, and I just tried a couple of other lenses and all of them were moving. So I think it's just that you realize it with this lens, because the aperture ring is quite hard to turn, but that's apparently pretty normal. Now, something amazing about this lens at the price point of it, at $145, that it has fully internal focusing, meaning it doesn't change in size whatsoever when you're focusing. I've seen a couple of similar macro lenses at the same price point, and pretty much all of them increasing in size when you're focusing, meaning a tube comes out of the lens that just increases outwards. And another thing that I really appreciate that they did it is that they write the distance and the reproduction ratio on the focus ring of this lens, which is just a small detail, but it makes such a big difference, because with a lot of lenses, maybe not even macro lenses that you use, you have no clue what the focus-in distance or the reproduction ratio is. And yeah, it's just a small detail, but it's great. And one thing that I maybe should have said earlier, but it's pretty obvious honestly at this price point, it is a fully manual lens. It doesn't have any autofocus. Unfortunately, also no EXIF data. So after you're shooting, when you're looking at your pictures in Lightroom, you have no clue what aperture you used, and also this lens doesn't have any weather sealing, but again at this price point it's not really a surprise. Now there's one thing about this lens that's not very easy for me to judge, as I have not done that much macro photography beforehand, so I'm just going to put my thoughts out there and let you decide if it's important to you or if it isn't. And this has only come up when taking non-macro images, so it might not even come up in your normal workflow, but the lens has quite obvious image distortion on the right side of the picture, pretty much none on the left side and none in the middle anyway, because generally the image quality is quite good, but you can tell on the right side of the image that it's distorted. Now that again might just be my copy, but I just wanted to put it out there. Now my thought about this was that might actually not be that important, because when you're doing macro photography the corners are pretty much out of focus anyway, but you let me know. But all in all, I really enjoyed using this lens, getting a different perspective on nature photography. I'm definitely going to try it more in the coming weeks and months. And well, about macro photography, there's still definitely a lot I have to learn about it, especially the focus stacking side of things. Generally though, this lens is good value for your money. Now if you want to find out about 2 prime lenses that I think every photographer needs in the lineup, check out this video right here.